officially live on YouTube for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today we got the guest investor of the week. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and filling in quite nicely for GC is a man that has he's known for many things. He has instigated the race to the top of how many properties this community can have. He is the co-initiator of the first ever IRL meetup. He is a former circus. I guess you're never a former circus anything, right? Like once you're a tightrope walker, you're always a tightrope walker.
It's kind of like being a Marine.
like being a Marine. Loved investing in Florida so much that he moved back to Florida. New Florida man, the ringmaster of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, Drew Barnhill. Welcome to the show, my man.
Well, thank you. Hope everybody's having a great afternoon or I guess morning to those folks in California, Jen.
To Nadeem and
Yes,
Jen and,
yes.
and those folks and the first family. And as always, we have our phenomenal community manager in the house. We call her MTM because she brings us a moment to matter. And because her name is Madison the Magnificent.
Hi, everybody.
And we are pumped to have the community in the house. If you are new to the show and you want to catch up on like the base knowledge of rental property investing, me and GC put together a course at notyouraverage.guide.com. Drew, have you taken the course?
I have.
You have. What'd you think of the course?
It was very interesting. Most of it's kind of basic.
Well, yeah,
I've
you're a
been
pro.
at there's a lot,
Yeah.
but it's basics everybody needs to know. I mean, it's kind of like you got to walk before you run.
Yeah.
And learning a lot of these things. It was even nice kind of brush up on them because you always can revert back to the basics. The basics, what grounds you.
Love it, man. Love it. Well, 200 plus people have taken it. So you're in good company if you go to notyouraverage.guide.com. Get from 0 to 60, get the basics down of this rental property. That way you can just be part of the community and listen in for the inside jokes and be part of our favorite little tradition, which is the roll call, baby. Let's go. We got the MVP in the house, Drew. You know who that is?
John Henning.
Oh no, the MVP is Lee Bishop.
Oh,
Man.
Lee Bishop.
Lee
I'm waiting for the leadoff guy with John Henning.
I will lead John Henning sitting third today, but we got the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community,
Jen
Phils, and we got the leadoff batter hitting third today.
There's John Henning.
John Henning. I love it. We got the mountain man.
Billy Green.
Billy Green.
Mhm.
Billy Green saying the chipmunk infested mountains of Colorado. We got our favorite Pacific Northwesterner with a good morning, good afternoon from JWB family.
The Dean Shaw. I got to hang out with him when I went on an Alaska cruise.
Oh, that's
coming
true.
back.
That's
Yeah.
true. You are the ultimate meetup guy. We've got our friend from the illustrious Hudson Valley of New York, Chris Gonzaga. All right. We got Big Papa in the house. We love it when he calls it Big Papa.
J.
Big J Cohen, Greg's dad.
Mhm.
Who else we got in here? We got the early bird, Dean Curry from
Oh,
Columbus,
yes,
Ohio.
yes. Yeah, I've met Dean many times now.
So far,
Good
you
guy.
got a solid B- right now.
Yeah,
So
all right.
you're hanging in there though. We got Michael Santoris in the house, wishing everybody a good afternoon. Who else? We got Aaron Wilson from Atlanta. You know him?
I do not.
You do not know him?
That's a new name.
New name.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Aaron Wilson from Atlanta. You just got here from close by there, Woodstock, Georgia.
Yeah, which
Right?
is considered
Greater
Metro
area.
Atlanta.
Yeah, Metro
you know.
Atlanta. Good to have you, Aaron. Hope you make a ritual out of hanging out with us here in the community. Who else we got? We got a bunch of people checking in here. We got Marilyn Cotterman. She's from Homosassa, Florida.
The home of the man.
The home of the manatees. She also says "Go Knowles," which I feel obliged to read, even though I don't like it coming out of my mouth.
Didn't you miss the first family?
No, we're about to talk about
Oh,
the first
okay,
family because
okay.
the patriarch and the matriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Show, Ken and Carolyn Moline. What do we do for the first family? We salute you, first family. Good to have you on board, the
Yes.
Molines. Who else? I hope I'm not missing anybody with all this excitement having Drew here with me. Oh, we got a Bienvenidos a Gator Country Ringmaster from Bill Shields.
Oh, Bill Shields. Yes.
Bill Shields. We got Tammy Team Game Time Gameson, Tamara Gameson, that has come with her own nickname in here. I love it. Tamara, good to have you in the house. We got somebody checking in from the text with a Not Your Average Guest. If you check in from the text, I don't know your actual name. You're just registered as Not Your Average Guest. Says, hi, everyone from Visalia, California, Central Valley. I'm assuming that's a new name because I haven't heard Visalia in the house. We got Sergio Prieto.
From
Go
Puerto
Gators.
Rico.
Go Gators, checking in from Puerto Rico over here.
Okay.
Sergio, we're in Puerto Rico, man. I love that little island. I actually got engaged in El Yunque in Puerto
I
Rico.
remember you talking about that. Yeah.
And we've got Aaron O'Neill into that
the
ice. Good to have you on board, Aaron O'Neill. All right, Drew, I know that we have promoted. Oh, I almost forgot my favorite segment of the show. After the roll call, you know what that is?
Madison has good news.
It's when Madison shares good news. What's the good news, Madison?
All right, everybody. I got a really cool email. Everyone knows that, well, if you don't know, now you do. The data flywheel, JWB loves to track numbers. And it is not only beneficial for us to help you, but it's also beneficial for you guys to know just how everything's performing, have all the data you need to make sure that you as investors are being successful in what you're doing. So another really cool stat that we share with our team and I want to share with you is how much rental income our clients earn accumulatively in a month. And I think we hit a record high last month.
Oh.
It's the highest that I've seen. It is over $4.9 million in rental income
Ooh.
just in the month of June.
4.9 million, getting close to that 5 million
That
mark.
5 million, that sounds like a nice benchmark, 5 million.
And that's
Really close.
and that's per month.
Yep.
That blows my mind, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
somebody that dreams of building a $1 million business.
Yeah.
Not to mention
Between
a
six-
$4 million
Yeah,
business.
between 1,600 clients, we paid $4.9 million of rental income that they earned out to them.
Man, that's nice. That's
I got my fair share of that.
I'm getting a little bit of that too.
I actually got a little bit more because I had a client move out and now the security deposit, because they moved out, they broke the lease and moved out. a little bit early.
Resident.
So I got the security deposit in this one. So it's like
Oh.
delayed about 3 or 4
Oh,
months. So that
there
was
you
like
go.
a
So
nice
you did your
extra
part. You did your part.
kicker,
up
but
that
then I
far.
had the turn, which wasn't real bad, but that was, you do have unexpected turns in this business and you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, there you go. Cool, man. That is really good news, man. So $4.9 million in monthly cash flow. That is rent collected by the property management team and paid to the JWB investors. Incredible revenue source. And we love the data flywheel around here.
Oh, we love the data
Shout out to
flywheel.
Kara, mother of flywheels. Madison, you know what I call that, right?
Good news.
I call that good news.
Yes.
All right, Drew Barnhill. I've been waiting for this, man. I've been waiting to have you in here, pick your brain about stuff. The first thing that I would like to just kind of like tell everybody, right? You started investing with JWB in 2021.
Correct.
And I look at you here, you look like a spry young man, maybe late 40s, early 50s. Is that true?
That is not true.
How old are you, Drew? How old
I
are you, Drew?
actually turned 67 last month.
67, and you started investing with JWB just 2 years ago.
Correct.
Most people, when we go to places and we talk about investing in rental properties and we talk about like the 5 profit centers and all these things, the number one thing I hear is, oh, that sounds awesome. I wish I would have done that when I was younger. And these are people younger than you. Can you tell me what your approach to rental property investing based on where you are in life? Can you just talk to me a little bit about that?
Well, everybody always talks about that the best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Well, the second best time is right now. It's always going to be, you can talk yourself out of it if you want to, because it's tough to take that first step. Now, I had rental properties before in Atlanta
Mhm.
that I was selling, but I first ran across JWB probably around 2017 and 18.
Okay.
And at that time, I still had the properties there and I wasn't kind of ready to go and everything like that. Wished I would have, because it would have been a lot easier back then in Jacksonville and everything like that. But I didn't let it stop me in 2021 from pursuing at that point. Even though, you know, I hear a lot of the gurus on there and they talk about, oh, there's going to be a housing crash. It's going to, you know, and then research a lot of these YouTubers and go back. And in 2017, they were saying the same thing.
Mm.
2018, they were saying the thing. 2019, they were saying they've been predicting a crash for so long because you have the recency bias. Everybody remembers 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
But these things have trouble repeating themselves because of the fact that everybody remembers that when people expect a crash, that's when a crash doesn't happen, kind of thing.
Interesting.
I mean, I think we pulled some of it forward, and is rent growth and property appreciation for the next few years going to be what it was? No, but that was unsustainable. And people have been around for a while. We all knew that you're not going to grow 10, 12% a year. That's just, you know.
True. So you kind of alluded to this, right? Like you said, you do your research on YouTube and whatnot. You're kind of like a research worm, right? Like you really get deep into the data. You really research stuff. When you were researching in 2017 up until 2021, where to put your money, what things were you looking at, and what made you decide to do it?
Well, first and foremost, I had to believe in the people in the company,
Okay.
because I was going to invest out of state. And I've been involved with property managers before, and I've had some bad experiences with property managers. So I really had to check out JWB. And the more I checked out, the more, you know, amazing that they seem. One of the big things I did is I checked on Yelp and that with the residents and what they thought of JWB, glowing returns and everything like that. People say, well, what do you care about the residents and everything like that? And I says, well, happy residents basically stay longer and they don't tear up your property. I mean, that's been my experience. So that's a key point of it, is how you treat your residents.
And
you know?
why is staying longer, not tearing up your property important to you?
Because it tearing up my property cost me money, and turns cost me money as well. So
There you go.
these things all mitigate the biggest problems with real estate.
Mhm.
And that is, having frequent turns and having to repair and maintain.
So if you were already at the point where you were checking resident reviews,
Mhm.
that I would assume that in your head, you had already identified rental properties and the Jacksonville real estate market, if you were that far down the pipe?
Yes, because when I started really looking at Jacksonville, I started really researching it. And in a lot of ways, it reminded me of Atlanta like 20 years ago.
What do you mean?
It was about ready to explode. I've seen this happen in Charlotte and Nashville and Atlanta. And Jacksonville, like I said, was a little bit behind that. Part of the reason for that, I think, was the downtown area. It really lagged behind quite a bit. And I saw that starting to move when I saw those figures of there was 3,000 residents and now there's over 10,000 residents. A vibrant downtown area is crucial to a revitalization of a company. You've got Fortune 500 companies down here, Dun & Bradstreet relocated. I mean, the venerable Dun & Bradstreet from no longer headquartered in New York, headquarters in Jacksonville. And that's FIS, is a great fintech company. So you have a lot of
Spending a lot of coin downtown.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think a lot of this also being in Florida's tax base, because I think a lot of the high tax states in this world are going to coming to this now that jobs are more mobile and people are more mobile and everything like that. The states are going to have to more compete on the tax level.
It's interesting, Drew. So I know that you follow closely here what we, you're a very participating member of our community and, like couldn't do it without you. You're talking about a couple things in the downtown area of like you seeing some stuff coming. And then you've also said a couple things that have happened in the time that you've been around and already been investing, man. So like, how has that felt? This idea that you're like, oh man, this reminds me of Atlanta 20 years ago. Then you are starting to buy real estate. Then you're actually starting to see these like dominoes fall that tell you that the domino rally is on. What are you thinking about now these days? I
still think we're in the infancy in Jacksonville. It's still the lowest cost of living probably in the Atlantic Ocean in Florida.
That makes sense. For a city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, somewhat the whole Daytona, St. Augustine to Flagler, Jacksonville area is still a lot of untapped potential there. And the further south you go along the Atlantic, the cost of living raises dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of room to grow into that. It's a great place, I think, for working class and families to come, that they can come and be near the beach, be in Florida with that great tax, no state income tax and everything like that.
Yeah.
And still be close to the beach, living in Florida. The wage growth, I mean, I studied the wage growth. I mean, the last couple of years, it's averaged over 12% wage growth in Jacksonville.
Did you study that wage growth before you started watching the Not Your Average Investor show? Or was that something that you tuned your antennas into once we started talking economic growth?
Probably really at the beginning. I don't think before, but at the beginning, because wage growth is another area when you're looking at investing and you say, well, what's the deal with wage growth? Well, those people are your tenants basically, and they pay their rent. So if their wages are going up, there's a good chance of rent growth in the area.
Yeah.
And 12% I don't think that's sustainable. That's very high, but if it's growing at 12% when wages are going 3 to 4% in the rest of the country, well, if they come down to stagnant or something like that, the potential for wage growth is still there. And I think a lot of that is because, just like you say, it's one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in Florida now.
Yep.
Another great thing. Yeah, from 2010 to 2020. Yes, till today.
Right now.
You've had explosive growth there.
Yeah.
Some of the other population centers in Florida are slowing down a little bit. Well, slowing down from, there's still fast growth.
The rate of acceleration.
Yes, because it's still, they're not Chicago or Detroit or anything like that, where you're kind of losing population or anything like that. But the rate of growth has slowed down.
Yeah, because of affordability, right?
Affordability somewhat, and also because they've had such great growth in the past that they're filling up. Jacksonville, you still have some open spaces and room to grow.
Tons of open spaces.
Yes, much more than you do in, like certainly the South Florida area where I grew up in, and like that, they're literally bumping up against the Everglades. They really can't,
That's right. That's right. They have that natural border there. It's almost like being on a coastline. It's like being on its own little peninsula because you can't move into a national park.
You can't go west of Weston. It's right up.
Yeah,
exactly.
That makes sense, man. You know what? The wage growth thing is so real. Like I remember when I moved here, I thought that moving from Miami to Jacksonville, I was going to lower my cost of living. I knew that was going to happen. I knew that my quality of life would go up because I equate quality of life directly to how many days a year I serve, right? And I knew that was going to go up 10x. I thought I was going to pay a penalty in wage growth, right? Like I thought that going to a smaller market than Miami, wage growth would be less. And while I'm an entrepreneur, so it's less correlated to like where I live, right? Because I kind of kill what I eat. My wife immediately was making like 30% more than she was making in Miami as a W-2 architect. And today she's making more than double what she makes in what she was making in Miami just 4 years later.
And equate to the cost of living, it's probably triple or quadruple, actually.
100%, which, and I think we want to educate the community. If anybody is new here, it's the idea of, we talk about wage growth. Why don't you explain it? Why is wage growth and why is this stuff important if I'm trying to get educated on rental property investing?
Well, the wage growth has everything to do with the rise in rents, quite honestly. You can't raise rents if people are not making more money. When people make more money, they can afford to pay more in rent. And naturally, the rent appreciation is higher in a place that's not only two things, the migration patterns, if it is getting more people there, and are they making more money? Those two things are critical when it comes to rent growth. I mean, you can even have stagnant wages if you have a rapidly growing population because it feeds the population and grow that way. But having both is a double whammy that is amazing for that.
Yeah.
And we have had phenomenal rent growth here in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Wage growth, like you said, wage growth has two things, right? Wage growth increases your cash flow because rents will go up, right? So you're buying under a certain condition right now with positive cash flow, but as time progresses, the rent is going to go up and your expenses stay the same because you're in these like fixed mortgages. And it also is nice for the demand for rental property housing, right? Like if I'm a young person that's looking at opportunities and where to grow, or I'm a blue collar family that's just like, man, I just need to make a couple more shekels and reduce my cost of living. I'm going to look around and think, oh, if there's better wage growth in this town called Jacksonville with wonderful weather and beaches and all this stuff, I'm going to move there for the opportunity. And that provides risk mitigation for us as investors.
Yeah, and more competition for rents. The more people, the more competition there is because, quite honestly, in a fast growing area, they can't build houses fast enough, and it makes it for a more competitive environment.
Billy Green has a very important question. He sees this fancy blue shirt you got on that says Not Your Average Investor Show. And he asks, how do we get our own cool blue Not Your Average Investor Show? Where'd you get that?
Well, I think I've got like 3 of them. You can donate to JWB Cares, or do we still do that, Madison?
No, we got to come to a meetup.
Got to come to a meetup.
Okay, you got to come to. I've gotten one for a meetup. I also got one we did for donating to JWB Cares. They were giving them out that one year.
Yeah.
And then I happened to be with Jen Filson when she picked them up, and she gave me one.
Billy Green. It's all about who you know, bro. It's all about who you know.
Exactly. And yes. And Billy Green, don't you have one? I thought
No. But Bill joined our community kind of like right before the big in-person meetup, and he wasn't able to make it down here. But Bill, I'm coming to Denver in August, so I'm definitely going to reach out to the Not Your Average Investor community over there. Hopefully, bring some shirts with me. Just for the record, I haven't really announced.
Yeah, I'd like to get out there myself. See Leslie and them. And Denver's just a neat town.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking at a conference over there, but I literally applied to speak at this conference because I've never been to Denver in the summer, and I'm dying to go to Denver in the summer. It's like late August. Catch a show at Red Rocks, stuff like that. So I'll reach out to the community. Jag, we don't have the next meetup planned yet, but I do plan on having an informal one in Denver mid-August. Anyway,
that's cool.
I should have said that earlier.
I was kind of disappointed we weren't going to do one here until next year. We typically do one in the fall, or I remember December we did one year.
We did a couple. Yeah, we've done more in the last year. This year has just been tricky. But
right. And the last one I was not able to make because it was in the middle of tax season. I was still living in Atlanta.
That's right.
Now we can have one in the middle of tax. I can still make it because I'm only an hour and 15 minutes away instead of 6 hours away. So
you are. There is no way that you're missing anything coming up. All right, let's add some more value, right? So this is your decision-making criteria, right? You're looking at the things in the market. You're looking at this asset class and you're liking it. Let me just dig in a little bit deeper as far as like timing in your life. Like what is if you started doing this like 3 years ago, did you just have a bunch of money sitting around that you like had to put somewhere, or what were you thinking about when you were like at this, I'm guessing 65 and thinking?
I was about to turn 65, I think, because it was the first property I got was May 2021. And I would have been turning 65 in June 2021. Yes. Well, part of it is that was a point in my life. I wanted to get going a little bit earlier than that, but I just sold a couple businesses in 2019. It kind of affected a little bit the DTI situation. I had to get that straightened out. I did have some capital from that coming in, and it was kind of a little bit of a flux. In 2020 is also when I went to work remotely for Intuit. They kind of recruited me, and so that allowed me more flexibility because of the DTI thing. Because of course, one of the reasons I wanted to get into that time because conventional financing was awesome as far as the rates for rental properties goes and everything like that. We were getting money at 3.5, 3.6,
That's right.
3.7%.
Yeah.
30-year fixtures.
The deal was the debt back then.
The deal was the debt.
Yeah.
So once I got in there, got that straightened out, I stretched to get as many properties as I can as quick as I could because, I've been around a while, and when I hear record low interest rates, that means it's never happened before, and don't expect it again, and don't expect it to last forever. So, it was a scramble at that point. I think I had planned on getting 5 properties by 2023. I did that by the first half of 2022 because I really stretched everything I could.
I want to tap into that stretch, right? Because we teased this show as like one of the most creative fundraisers out there for real estate capital. But before we do that, when you were telling people this plan, when you were told people like at 64, you're like, I'm gonna try to put some chips into rental properties right now. Did people look at you funny? Were they like, why are you doing that at this point in your life? Like, what was that reaction?
Well, unfortunately in our society, people don't really understand real estate and income producing assets as a whole. Not everybody has read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is kind of the primer that got a lot of us started on this and everything like that. And you're not taught this kind of stuff in school. I mean, I was a financial planner at one time and everything like that. And it's all about, time in the market, not timing the market kind of thing, just passive investing in the stock market and everything like that, grow your nest egg and everything like that. And we're just not taught this. Our parents typically don't teach us this because it's not something that's kind of passed along. So you got to go outside the box, and I think Wealth Builders and Bigger Pockets, some of these, outfits have done a great job in kind of educating people, but that's where you got to get educated. You don't learn this stuff in college. You really don't. But the idea of income producing assets was kind of very appealing to me. Also, I don't plan on passing when I'm 70 years old. I'm 67, but I keep in good health. I don't take any prescription medication at all. So that's the thing is
you intermittent fast from time to time. You were just talking about it.
Literally every day, kind of. But so it's a question of, that just because you're in your 60s and retiring doesn't mean that you don't have to plan for the next 20, 30 years. And the nice thing about income producing assets is basically the assets pay you income and money without depletion. In the stock market, you start to get a plan where you're starting to take money out and everything like that. And your assets will deplete sometimes slowly and everything like, depending upon how things are going and everything like that. The nice thing about real estate is the asset stays there and it just pays you. And the longer it is, the more it pays you, because as you say, you got the principal pay down. We got our famous 5 profit centers. Yes. And as you say, especially if you get fixed debt and everything like that, that stays the same. Whereas rent growth comes in, you can also do things like I want to give a shout out to Ricci and the girls over there. They've done a great job. We restructured a lot of my insurance. That was a great show that Whitney did that kind of gave me a lot of ideas there that I brought up with them. And I'm actually paying less in insurance this year than I did last year.
Interesting.
Because of some of the way we structured, some of those things. And now that I'm in Florida, now I've also got them bundling lots of my insurance together. So I'm always looking for ways to create more value, and to do that because it just kind of tweaks things. Part of that is I'm an accountant and I have a math degree, got into accounting and corporate finance. So I like this sort of things, and a lot of it is, it's fun to me too. People say, well, you've got all this stuff, you got all these, the financing you're moving around, you got all this debt to pay attention to and all that stuff and everything like that. And they say, they get tired. And I says, I love that. I mean, playing with money and finance, it's all numbers to me. I've always loved math. I love playing with it. And it's, to me, it's a hobby as well. It's something I enjoy doing.
I want to get into your ability to be a financial engineer. One of the things that I want to call out is I mean, you put it really well, man. This income producing assets, right? Like how do you build a portfolio of income producing assets in this discipline of category design that I really, really care about? I think it's a really good way of like influencing people and educating people. They talk about this point of view of, you know, when you're creating a new category, it's like the context, what's missing, and the new innovation creates a new category, right? And to me, the context is that we're living longer, right? We are living longer. You are a prime example of this, right? You're in 68, you're in great shape. You look like you're in like
67. Don't make me an old year.
I got you, buddy. I got you, buddy. You're in great shape. You don't plan to, you know, like biohacking was not a thing 10, 20 years ago, right? Like people are really understanding this. And as technology accelerates, we're going to continue to live longer. And what's missing is this idea that if we are living longer, then all of these paradigms that we all used to believe in, that was, okay, well, I just got to have enough money till I get to about like 80. And the rest, I'm just going to let it ride. So I just need to build this like nest egg that starts to deplete, like you just said, at a certain point. If you build up a nest egg of stocks and bonds and it starts to deplete after a certain time because you start living off of it, that starts to create a problem if you start living considerably beyond 80. And that's where we're headed. So your solution of the new innovation is cash flowing assets, which essentially is building a cash growth portfolio, right? A portfolio that is not like a net worth portfolio that then spits out cash, but a portfolio that grows in cash flow over time because rents increase, your costs stay the same. At some point you pay down your mortgage completely, right? So like rents continue to grow is something that we really need to start thinking about at your age.
Yeah, and don't forget depreciation, which is really,
And appreciation.
you know, in the right market is the number one profit center, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, outliving your money is truly one of the disaster, catastrophes of our time. You know, it's not a pretty sight when somebody outlives their money because, you know, they've got used to a certain lifestyle for many, many years and having to cut back on it when when you're at your most vulnerable. That's a tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about what you said, appreciation, money engineering. Tell me how you think about, you know, engineering your portfolio and doing things like that.
Well, to me, I always have a plan A, plan B, plan C, you know, kind of thing. It's, you know, you always want to have contingencies.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when it comes to financing, you know, people say, well, if the financing that I've got doesn't pan out, you know, then I'm doomed. Well, no, there's always another way. You know, I've created a lot of different deals and a lot of financing. Sometimes I had to go to plan C, but there's always a way if you keep digging. It's kind of like having that dog mentality and I'm going to get this done and I'm going to figure out a way to get it done. Like I said, I've had a lot of deals where literally I had to create a lot of things. I've actually, you know, at a property I owned with a partner one time, I quit claim, you know, myself, basically claimed him off the deeds, sold the property to him. You know, we splitted the kind of the appreciation to get me another property that I needed kind of thing. And then, you know, and we split that and kind of went back on it, you know, because if you can get an appraisal out of it, that was a good way to do that. That's another great thing about the appreciation part of it is well, people say, yeah, but you got to sell to get the appreciator. No, you don't. There's things called refinancing. You know, if you're, you know, let's say your property appreciates over 4 or 5 years and it's 120 grand, you refinance, take that out. That is tax-free cash flow. That's what, you know, kind of I love about debt. You know, I always say that debt is how rich people don't pay taxes, you know, because when you hear about this all the time, real estate moguls and everything like that, not only the depreciation allowance that helps you not pay taxes on a lot of your cash flow. You know, when you can take money out to reinvest in things of this nature, it literally is tax-free cash flow, you know.
Yeah.
And I would recommend that anybody explore that strategy. If you're going to sell, of course, use a 1031, kind of mitigate taxes because being an accountant taxes is, you know.
You're now talking at like a 301 level. Talk more like at a 101 level. When you say that debt is free cash flow, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's tax-free cash flow.
Tax-free cash flow.
Yeah, because
Explain that mechanic.
okay, let's say I buy a property for 200,000. Okay, I finance it, and it's going great 4 or 5 years down the road. I've got my cash flow and everything like that. And now all of a sudden the property is worth 300,000. I can refinance that, take that $100,000 out of it to go buy more properties, something like that. And I don't pay taxes at all on that because it's debt. It's not considered income by the IRS. It's just considered debt. And then I've got the $100,000 out of it. And also, let's say I put in $60,000, $70,000 down payment on it, and now I've got that down payment back. So now that asset is really earning me an infinite rate because I've got no money in it at that point, and it's still cash flowing, still paying me property and like that. And I've got zero in it. We're literally doing an infinite cash flow.
Yeah.
And the secret to it is, I tell people all the time, there's good debt and debt. Good debt is debt basically buying income producing assets. Bad debt is when you're going into debt, 18% on credit card debt to buy TVs and clothes and stuff like that. These are things, yes, you want these in your life and they're nice, but everything like that. But don't go into high interest debt to get them and everything. That's your ultimate bad debt.
Yeah, definitely, man. So then in this scenario, what you're describing is you have a property let's say you have a property that's worth $200,000. It goes up $100,000 in value. So it's $300,000. You refinance means you take out a $300,000 loan, pay off the rest of the property. You have an extra $100,000 that you put 60 into a down payment. Now in something else, you're keeping that other 40 for something else, or you're investing that in somewhere.
I mean, you can use it however you want.
Yeah.
But you can set it up. I mean, I've got spreadsheets on everything. That's the nerdy accountant in me coming out. But you can see, work it out so that you have the cash flow coming in. Always try to have cash flow and utilize that, so then you can literally, after your first 4 or 5 properties, you can typically get 4 or 5 more without putting any money into it, just by over time appreciation and things of this nature. And
what I'm hoping to do.
Yeah. And that is the compounding effect.
That's the compounding effect. That's when you say infinite returns, right? Like you're just like your properties have baby properties on their own.
Right. Like I said, basically if I buy a property for 200,000, okay, I put, let's say $60,000 down and everything like that. Property goes up to 300,000. Okay. So then I take out, it'd be like 80%. I take out 75, 80,000. Okay. I put 60,000 in that property. Now I've taken 75,000 out. It's still cash flowing. Okay. But now I have no money in that property. It's already the refinance. It's giving me my down payment back and everything like that. All of it's debt. The debt is cash flowing. And that's where you get infinite returns. I mean, I'm getting a return at a $0 investment. Yeah.
So you've done some of that, which I think a lot of people do, right? Like I already talked about on the show. I plan on doing this stuff. You also, because you are so thorough in how you keep track of everything, you also get a little bit more aggressive, right? Like you've leveraged even more risky assets. You keep like really deep track of it. You want to talk about that strategy?
Well, I've used it. In fact, I actually started a couple of business where they're using balance transfer on credit cards, and people say, well, yeah, it's teaser rate and everything like that. Typically, especially back then, now you got to pay more 4 or 5% fees, but there were 2 or 3% fees where you could get 15 to 18 months, 0% interest and things of this nature. And I really kind of came across that in around 2011, 12, when I was, needing business loans and everything like that. Everybody wanted to give me a business loan, but they wanted 7, 8, 9% and everything like that when interest rates were really low. And I said, man, that just seems kind of really high. And then I stumbled across like I said, the balance transfer thing. And I said, well, shoot, I can handle this debt for, and you have to structure it out. So I literally started accumulating credit cards for this purpose and everything like that. And people say, well, why do you have so many credit cards? Well, you never want to have more than 3, 4, or 5 going at one time and everything like that. And that way, if you get to the point where you have one coming due, you can flip it into another one and things of this nature. And then it became even really valuable in that if you get an LLC, you get a business like one of your properties or something like that, and if you get credit card debt on that, you can get balance transfers against that, and they don't report to your personal credit bureau unless you default. You got a personal guarantee, so you got to make sure you pay. And then so it doesn't affect the credit utilization in your credit score, which can keep your credit card high. And it's all about flexibility. It's there, I have a very high because I have the credit cards, very high credit card. And he said, well, why would you ever need a credit card limit like that? You know, it's better to have and not need than need and not have,
Totally.
you know, and it's just produces flexibility. And that happened just this last year. The last property I had gotten, we had a little bit delays getting to the, you know, to the financing window because it was being renovated and things of this nature. So the interest rates went from, you know, we were getting 3.84% to boom, I was going to have to pay 7.5, 8% on that property and like that. So I at that point, I kind of flipped the script and I literally bought the whole thing on the credit cards, the balance transfer, took balance transfer offers out on that and bought that property. It gives me an 18-month window, let things figure out.
You bought it cash off of your balance transfers.
Correct. Now I had to use some of the personal money, credit cards for that because it wasn't quite going to do it with the, you know, so it did hit the credit utilization. My credit score did drop about 100, 120 points, but I structured it knowing that was going to happen so that I didn't need, you know, credit coming up until that window was off. And I have a pretty good free cash flow, which is I'm fortunate in having that. So these things they're getting paid off, you know, rather quickly, and you know, but I won't pay them off early because it's 0%. Well, I pay off a zero, you know, and you know,
I'm pretty sure you know the exact date that these things are coming due. So when is that coming due?
The last one's coming due in December.
In December. So
Yes.
you bought a house straight cash about 2 years ago?
No,
Or
it was last year.
last year.
Yes.
Okay, last year in June.
June.
And with a credit card transfer that you have then been paying down the credit card transfer based on?
Well, based on some of it was transferring debt because I had some coming due in the work credit cards that I did get that paid down, used the free cash flow of that, and then redid those back in the work thing. So they would come off my personal credit report. And some of them I just did. Well, part of it is I just sold my house in Atlanta because I'm buying the new place here. But that most of that money went into the new place because the structure of that was I had to put down like 100,000 deposit because of the community was. So then I have some, you know, there's some of my stock portfolio I sold to kind of get in that to the point.
To buy your residence.
Yes. And I had, you know, the free cash flow kind of pulls up, and because I have a high yield savings account, which pays almost 5% now. So that was the whole thing is why do I want to pay off something 6 months later is 0% when I can leave it in the savings account and getting 5%? Kind of thing. So you want to set up and structure, have a plan, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is where we say, it's what Michael Santori is saying in the chat. You got to be really careful with this stuff, right? Like
Absolutely.
You got to be really detailed. You got to know to a T, because if it gets a day late, they hit you with a big percentage. It hits your credit score, all that stuff. You have to be very detailed. You have to have a plan.
I have a whole spreadsheet up there that literally has every credit card on it. The ones I have a balance transfer on, it has the amount on there. It has the time limit on there, when it's coming due. You know, I have a formula in there that says, hey, this one's coming due in 5 months. This one's coming due in 8 months. This one's coming due in 10 months. It's something I review on a weekly basis, you know, to make sure I'm wearing that and structure and plan. You know, we have a saying in accounting is what is measured is managed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is you got to measure these things daily, even just weight loss. I mean, effective weight loss doesn't work unless you weigh yourself, things like that. What is measured is managed. So you do have to keep on top of this. It's something I happen to love doing.
You love doing it.
I do love doing
It's
it.
just not for everybody, right? Like Nadeem is saying, not everyone's cup of tea. You got to be really on top of it all the time. For you, this is not work. This is pleasure.
It is. Right? You know, yeah. People, you know, kind of some of my friends says, you just love playing with money. And I say, yeah, I kind of do. It challenges me. To me, it's like a big puzzle, and you know, just to try to figure that out.
Yeah. Note to self: don't play Monopoly with Drew.
Well, you know, it almost goes back to my old chess playing days and everything like that. You got to plan 3-4 moves ahead, you know, and that's kind of what life's all about too. You know, you just, you know, hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. All right. Let's hit a couple of questions and I want to go through your actual portfolio. Number one, Jag is asking, hold on, Jag had a question here in the chat that says, she's asking about how, you know, you told me a little bit while ago that this kind of affected your credit, right? So she's asking, how does the credit strategy impact your credit score for borrowing for mortgage and the 30% or less credit utilization rule?
It does. And that's one of the reasons that I started early on was getting credit cards in the LLC, because business credit does not report to your personal credit bureau. And like I said, unless you default, then you know, because typically you have to personally guarantee those, and they don't have any reason to unless you default. And so that helps there. but it certainly will, you've got to, it's all about planning, because I knew that basically, and I've been involved in, I came out of college working for General Electric Credit Corporation in the early 80s, and we developed a lot of the credit scoring things.
You
So
know credit scoring real well,
I do.
and
I
you
know
can
how to
even
face it.
time like when your credit is going to come back
Right.
up and stuff like that.
So
That's interesting.
I knew this. I got everything taken care of because I knew I was going to have a year of having a lower credit score. And when I say lower credit scores, I'm talking about in 650 to 680, not, which I used to have 790, 800. So I knew that was going to impact. So I basically had everything kind of taken care of, planned that I was going to take a year off, restructure the balance sheet to get this done. And then, I would be in a position, very strong position, to come back and do another 5 houses. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
And that's what you're planning on. Once you recover from this move, then you're going to go get 5 more houses. We're going to talk about that in a second. We got an interesting question here from somebody checking in on the text, not your average guest, asking, if I have 10 years left on a mortgage, the property has appreciated 110K. How do I decide whether I should refi to get cash and buy another property, or just wait to get the cash flow once the property is free and clear? What do you say to that, Drew?
Well, a lot of it is doing the math, quite honestly. You got to figure out the interest rate. If you're at a 3.5% interest rate, if you want to, you can tap that money, see what a second will do, or, now there's a lot of areas where more people want to do a HELOC on a business property. That's something I've researched, that more companies are trying to do that. Okay. They're typically a little bit higher and everything like that. So you got to see what the blended rate is. It might just be better on today's rates to just do a complete refi, because of the blended rate, especially if you've got a 3.5% mortgage at 50 and you're going to do another second at 100,000, kind of thing, the higher rate of the second, it might make more sense to blend it and do just one refinance first and everything like that. Yep. So a lot of it is just doing doing the math, and also see how it affects your goals. Yeah. Because that's ultimately have goals, have these things worked out, and then see how it fits in the goals, and there's oftentimes 2, 3, 4 ways to do things. And you've got to play with that to see which is the correct for your situation at that time.
Great answer, buddy. Not your average guest. I'm not sure exactly who's asking this, but that is a really good reason to go to Chat with JWB and book a call, because the JWB team can draw up some of these scenarios for you, right?
Phenomenal.
So like Drew said, it really depends on your goals, right? Like if you are in a time of your life where you really want to maximize cash flow because you want to live off that cash flow, it might make sense to pay it down, right? If you're in a time of your life when you are still in a growth stage and a cash growth stage, then maybe it makes sense to get that other property. And by the time that you're going to need that cash flow, now you got the cash flow from both of these properties, and you have that added appreciation from this other one that you'd acquire and different things. So if you don't have the tools to do it yourself, going to chatwithjwb.com and hopping on a call with a team could be a really good step in kind of like having them draw that out for you, or giving you some guidance onto where you can draw that out, or go to our Facebook group, talk to somebody like Drew that can also help you out as well.
Yeah. And it never hurts to have more properties. That's another thing that I wanted to kind of go into. Diversity is key. I've had 3 turns in the last 2 years, 2 of them unexpected. Never had to come out of cash on pocket on any of them, because of the fact that I had 5 properties and the cash flow of these covered all those areas. One was quite a large turn, but the fact of the matter is it took 2 or 3 months, and 2 or 3 months of the cash flow of the rent that I had was able to cover this. So I didn't have to come out of pocket for a lot of these things because I had diversification. The more houses you have, the more diversified you have, because you can have an unexpected turn. If you own one house and you have an unexpected turn, that's going to be costly.
It's going to come out of pocket.
Yeah. If you have 5 houses, not so much. If you have 10 houses, it can be a little blip on the radar.
Yeah. The Zacharias of the world out there. Quick question from Chris Gonzaga from the illustrious Hudson Valley of New York. Answer it quickly, and then we're going to jump into your portfolio. He asked, Drew, do you plan on getting a better interest rate with your lower credit score? Do you fall into that?
Well, I actually, no. Yeah, I know what he's talking about now, that the government is doing this to where have lower credit scores, that they don't have to pay as big of a penalty. A couple of things, that there's a lot of misnomers about that. You still get a better interest rate with a higher credit score. You just don't get as much of a penalty as you did before. Before, people with lower credit scores suffered a big penalty compared to people with higher credit scores. You don't suffer as much of a penalty now because of that. And also, these are all geared towards personal residence properties. This is not an investing thing. It really doesn't affect the investment rates at all.
Yeah.
Great
Perspective there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still get a better
deal
with a better credit score.
A lot of headlines about this. And
yeah.
I learned this from a journalist one time and said, we write articles, we don't write the headlines. We write an article about there and it's the publication that writes the headline to try to grab people in. And oftentimes you hear a headline, then you read the story and it says, well, that headline, that's not what this is all about at all.
Yeah.
And it's literally because the journalist typically doesn't write the headline, the publication does. So sometimes these can be misleading because they're meant to draw you in.
Correct. That's why you got to tune into the Not Your Average Investor Show. You get the facts.
Yeah.
You get the real stuff. All right, Drew, as you know, Greg couldn't be here today because he's on vacation with his family, but he put together the portfolio of us to review for you. But before that, he wanted me to send you this. He took this picture on a cruise doing his own tightrope walk in your honor for being the tightrope walker. Yeah, so it was
cool, Greg. Okay. Now we need to get you down. You got to look like about maybe 3-4 inches there. We need to get you down to a 5/8 inch cable, which is what we walk on.
He said he'd be happy to do that. I just know he would. All right. So here's your portfolio, Drew. There's a picture of you, me, Jen, and Renee having dinner here at True Food Kitchen in Jacksonville.
True Food Kitchen. Yeah, that was fun. Yes,
I love that. That was a fun little dinner. So here is your properties. It has purchase dates of May 26th of 2021, December 17th, 2021, December 23rd of 2021, and then you re-up again here in May and June of 2022. Purchase prices of 165, 175, you know what? I'm gonna have to make this a little bit bigger for you, boy, right here. 137, 140, 145, right? These are pretty low priced. You can already see the difference in how much the properties of the week that we have these days have gone up, right? So you definitely have some growth in there. You got 4 financed, 1 cash flow. Tell me a little bit about how you went about acquiring these properties.
Well, the first one, that was the Murray Hill property, which I kind of, did a little bit of demographic research. And the Murray Hill area is one place I really did want to have a place because it's near, I think, Avondale. And it was a place that's kind of flowing out, that's becoming a bit trendy, artsy-fartsy, which I lived in Woodstock, and I could see with that property.
You like the artsy-fartsy.
And that property has appreciated, it is been my biggest appreciating property. And part of that is coming into that. And at that point, then as quickly as I could, because I wanted to scale up quickly for the diversification end of it. Like I said, I'm a big believer of not having all your eggs in one basket and quickly. So I kind of targeted properties that I didn't get a lot of new properties, although that Play School Lane was a brand new townhouse. Okay. So that I could scale up quickly to get to the 5th property. Yeah. Couple things.
At the 5th property, you also get that
the 9% financing, which is is worth about
9% property management rate when you reach the JWB preferred, what is it called? The VIP program or something?
Right. Yeah. And then 10, you get to 8%. So that's when I start going again. I'm going to quickly try to scale up to another 5 to get that. You want to take advantage of everything. That's the one thing about JWB is they have some great programs to help you out, to scale you up basically nobody does. I have, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen a property manager go down in price like that for more. It makes sense,
Vertical integration.
Yes, but very few do that. And I cannot say enough about the property management of JWB. I've dealt with property managers before, and they are the absolute best. I love dealing with Maddie and my account, and everything like that. They're always taking care of me. Anytime I ask a question, they're there for me. Couldn't be happier. And like I said, I've had my share of challenges. Like I said, I've had 3 turns. One of them was expected, 2 of them were not. I literally, Manny had called me up one time that hey, we just got word on Monday that people moved out this weekend and they're gone.
Oh wow.
Kind of thing. And but that happens. You have to be prepared for that and everything like that. And that's one of the nice things, like I said, about having having the 5 properties and everything like that. I was able to weather that turn without coming out of pocket in anything.
Gotcha, man. So it sounded like this one you really were kind of like into the property in the neighborhood. And then the other 4, you just kind of wanted more chips in your portfolio. Did you?
Well, I wanted a newer property, and the townhouse made more sense for me at that point. And I also wanted at that point, it was I wanted to do 2 properties at one time, basically. So I was working with Teresa in this, and we had to get a property that was rented so that we could make the DTI work, because then we do the appraisal, and that would work on that. And that's where the 50558, it was already a rented property. It was ready to go. It didn't cost me a lot out of pocket and everything like that. So I packaged those 2 together. Got a pleasant surprise in that one when I came down here for the thing, and I researched the property, and I saw that I went like 4 blocks north of there. It's all being gentrified right there on the river. There's the north side and everything like that. And if that area expands, it's got to expand to the south. So that's another cool thing about Jacksonville. Cool. The area is changing, a lot of that coming from downtown and everything like that. But there's just a lot of gentrification going on, which really helps your property values. So that's what it is. And then I got to 3. And then I started, seeing some of the handwriting on the wall about interest rates and everything. I says, well, let me go as quick as I can. And that was then basically Dylan and Day. I got into those at almost the same. One of those, there was one I bought on it was the property of the week. Yeah. And I bought it right there on the show, but they were being renovated. So it took a little bit of time. Dylan, I got in right. I think I ended up getting a 6% rate, which was a little bit higher, but still. And then Day was going to be even higher than that. And that's the one I did with the credit cards and kind of had to do in that. And I was actually on an Alaska cruise when I was trying to put that together on my laptop along. Whenever I got to a port and everything like that, I'd spend an hour just hooking up and go to the library, hook up the Wi-Fi, and get that done. But yeah, and I wanted to get to that 5 as quickly as I could, because like I said, that gets me the 9% 5. And like I said, it's also for diversification purposes. And then I said, I'm going to get to 5 and then let the portfolio season a little bit.
Cool. Let's see how it seasons. So as of right now, total net rental income is actually negative. Why is that? Because of those property turns?
3 turns.
Because of the 3 turns.
Absolutely. Yes.
Got
yes.
it. Yeah. Your tax savings has been 11,732.
That's probably a little bit low, because I account and I do my own taxes, and I've gotten great tax savings out of that. I also have a higher income, so it kind of puts that, on that.
Principal has been paid down by your residents, $10,303. That's just clockwork for you.
Yeah, and that's probably a little bit low too, because on the Dillon property, I'm paying $500 extra a month just because it's a higher interest rate, and just to kind of get a little bit more out of that.
Got it. And then home price appreciation here in the last 2 years, $66,000, which is pretty good. That's what you're playing for.
Yeah, I would say over half of that is the Murray Hill property. It's done really well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's a short amount of time. And then this is the profit center. Like the profit center breakdown, right? Like what we always love to show, this idea that you can get your tax savings, principal pay down. You don't even have cash flow in this one, but the Pac-Man, right? Like the big piece is this home price appreciation that's increasing your wealth, that's allowing you to continue to be a financial engineer. And total initial investment right now of $316,000. Your portfolio returns of $383,000, your current value of $699,891, almost $700,000, and your actual IRR of 14.8%. What do you think of that?
Yeah. And like I said, in another year, that's going to look a lot better now, because I've got there's no leases coming due this year. I've got everything is now rented, even though the one turn that we did, it just got rented in June. So if you can get 11, 12, 13, 15 months and everything like that, where everything's on clockwork, that makes your portfolio just really shine. Totally. You have a couple of things they can do, you went through that. Yeah, with the eviction and everything like that. And that happens. But then you hit a stretch at some point, you'll hit a stretch where you got a year and a half where just everything comes together. And it doesn't feel like that so much to me now, because, my cash flow principal pay down is over $2,500 a month on just the 5 properties. So it's accumulating, kind of thing. And I have other cash flow too. So I'm fortunate in that respect.
Yeah. And that, not your average guest asking, why is there negative cash flow, right? He's hitting on that. We talked about it, right? You've had, in just a short amount of time, you've had 3 property turns, 2 of them unexpected. So that impacts the cash flow. But the point is, as time goes on, that's only going to get better for you, right? Like you're going to hit those long stretches of not happening, and at the same time, your net worth is being built, right? Like if this was your stock portfolio, it would still be going like this. It just happens to be not
one turn, I knew it was kind of happen, because that tenant had been there and almost 5 years, even before I bought it. One turn ended up being about $5,000. So look at the negative, if you look at take that $5,000 out of the equation, then it certainly is positive cash flow, just that one alone. But there again, because of the cash flow I had coming in, because I was getting $5,500, $6,000 a month in rent, kind of thing like that. It was able to pay for that without me coming out of pocket. Now I did have to probably went a little bit negative to pay the mortgages and everything like that, but I've got that set on automatic pay, and that doesn't hurt me as much because I don't think about it because it's all kind of automatically paid. And at one point it was on my HELOC on my house and everything like that. Now I've got a savings account that's high interest savings account that's doing that. So that doesn't affect me as much, but the fact is I never had to send money to JWB to pay for anything. All the rental income that I had was always able to pay everything.
Yeah, that's something that GC always talks about, this idea that if you can put some money away into a savings account, like you said, you actually have it in a high interest savings account and automate any kind of payment that needs to go out and needs to come in, have a little bit of reserves in there, then the experience completely shifts, right? Like if you're not having because in the stock market takes a beating. You're not coming out of pocket. You're not having to have a phone call to go like take some money out of the bank to go pay it. But if you set up a scenario like that for yourself, which is what you've done, then you create a similar experience where you just don't really feel it because it's coming out of this account that you don't really mess with it and you don't live off of. And in the meantime, real estate is doing its thing. It's doing the thing that we really care about, which is exceeding returns that you can get elsewhere. Yeah.
And now we can get, money in a savings account and kind of thing we wouldn't do before. But before I did that, I had it in a HELOC, which because the HELOC rates were low and everything like that. And I only needed it because at the one point I was literally paying like 3% on the HELOC. And so, but I shifted that, the savings account now because I could get more for that. So you got to evolve with the times. Take what it's, the old football and take what the defense gives you.
Take what the defense gives you.
Yeah. We have higher interest rates now. Well, but now we can get more interest on our money and everything like that. Yeah. So shift it, always be looking for the areas that you can save or the areas where you can grow. And literally, like I said, take what the defense gives you.
Drew, I got to say, that's something about you that's kind of universal. You are always looking, right? Like you are always seeking. Like I find you, whether it's in the health realm, in the financial engineering realm, in the data, you're always looking for opportunities and you're always growing. And I really, really admire that about you, man, because it's it kind of affects all the different parts of your life. It's one of the reasons why you were one of the beginners of the IRL meetup. You sought out Jen to meet up and you put in the effort and you really put in the effort to grow, man. I really respect that.
Well, thank you. I mean, a lot of it is just learning to listen to people too. People can teach you a lot. There's nothing. I mean, stimulating conversation is just, to me, one of the best parts of my day. I love that. I agree, man. Yeah, and everybody can teach you something. Everybody's got to. You only live one life, but if you listen to people, you can live hundreds of lives just by people's experiences and what they've gone through and everything like that. And quite honestly, trial and error is the slowest way to learn anything. If you can learn from other people's experiences and things like that, it's it can be very helpful.
There's a great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that I base my life on, which is he said, "In my walks, every man I meet is in some way my superior, and in that I can learn from them." Right? Every person you meet has learned something that you don't know. Drew, you're saying that you want to get 5 more properties in the next couple of years. What can we learn from you? What's your piece of advice for someone that's either starting in real estate or, maybe is already in it or is doing other things, or they're later in life and they're wondering whether or not to invest in properties or things like that? Give one piece of advice out there and send us off.
I mean, get started, if you wait until you think you know enough to never make a mistake, you're waiting too long. I mean, and you're not going to stop your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Start small, and learn from those mistakes, and then you can scale up from there. And, like I said, it's, I know people that have told me for the last 10 years, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And, it's, I guess, paralysis by analysis, it's the point where you want to have everything just perfect. You're never going to get to that point. At some point you got to take the plunge. There's nothing like trial by fire and
Yeah.
just get in there and do it. And then it'll challenge you to figure things out, figure stuff out. And like I said, and if one thing doesn't work, try something else, and you'll hit that sweet spot, and everything like that. Just, like I said, it always goes back to, when I remember when I was a teenager and I heard the quote from Teddy Roosevelt. They asked Teddy Roosevelt, how did you become so successful in life? He said, that's easy, failure. I failed hundreds of times, but I never gave up. I always got back up, tried again. And if you continue to never give up in life, eventually you will be a success. You can only not be a success if you give up.
Wise words from a wise man.
Yeah.
Buddy, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah.
This is great.
I loved it. Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to be here. And
I'm looking forward to lunch together.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank the community. Over 50 people showed up to listen to you jabber on there, get some great advice and learn from your wisdom. Can't do this show without you. Love the great questions that you ask. This Tuesday, we are reviving an old show segment that we like to call Jacksonville Real Estate Insider Secrets with Alex Safakis is going to be in studio dishing.
Alex is one guy here I have not met. That's my.
He's like Haley's Comet, man.
Yeah,
he's hard to catch.
He is tough to catch, but one of these days I'm going to get to meet Alex.
You're gonna get him. Well, you'll get the chance to tune in live on next Tuesday, asking some questions. A lot of stuff going on downtown with a new stadium deal, with the UF project, with all this different stuff that's happening. Alex is the ultimate. He is the co-founder of JWB, Greg's best friend from college, and he's just like the ultimate visionary and insider in Jacksonville that has his fingers in all the pots. And he's the reason why JWB is so vertically integrated beyond everybody else, because they're so deep into the community and deep into the economic development. So it's going to be a really, really great show. I can't wait to pick his brain because I greatly admire him and I want to grow up to be like him as well. But for now, from here till then, what advice do you have to give to people? What can they not do if they want to be part of this community?
Don't be average.
Don't be average, baby. See you on Tuesday.